Hello again. This is the Proctors History Committee project to preserve the oral history on videotape of many people who've had an influence on the history of Proctors. Today's date for recording purposes is August 17th, 2015, and we're very pleased today to have our guest Paul Kazee. And Paul, I'm going to ask you to give me your title because it is so extensive.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what my official title is anymore. I think it's House Manager and Event Merchandise Manager. We had some recent changes lately, and so.
You got to catch your phone message up to that.
Yeah.
And lost and found.
Yeah, well, yeah, my phone message has a long, jokey title.
So you do a lot of things here, and I'm just wondering if you could tell me what brought you to Proctors.
What brought me here was I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and I saw an ad. I was checking online for, I was working as an office manager, and I was just being frustrated with not being in a creative environment because I have a background in film and as an actor. I saw a job advertisement for a house manager, assistant house manager up here in Schenectady at Proctors, and I thought, let me go check it out. If maybe it'll be a good summer job, just something to do for a while. And came up here, saw what appeared to be a completely dead downtown, and I thought, yep, summer job for sure.
And here you are.
Yeah, interviewed with Bob Warlock, and he essentially hired me on the spot, and I decided to stay. Two
film lovers, right?
Yes.
You and Bob.
Yeah.
When you came here, what year was that about?
It was roughly 12 years ago. It was not too long after Philip Morris came here. I think less than a year after he joined.
So you've been through a lot of the excitement, the expansion, the change of programming.
Yeah, when I got here, it was just the one theater. It was before we expanded and added the GE and the cafe and all that stuff. So
tell us a little bit about your love of Oriental film.
Yeah, I would say Asian film rather than Oriental film. I don't know that I have a particular love for Asian film, but I've always had a love for to know stuff beyond what the mainstream is feeding me. So I like Italian cinema, I like German cinema, but I found myself when I was in New York City in a unique position in that there's people know about the one Chinatown, but there's actually several Chinatowns in New York City. One in Manhattan, one in Queens, I think a couple in Brooklyn, and each of those Chinatowns had video stores, and I learned through just my reading that most Hong Kong films made in Hong Kong had English subtitles. So I decided that that would be something interesting to learn about. So I started spending a lot of time in Chinatown, renting laser discs, and learning about Hong Kong cinema.
Now, have we brought any of that to Proctors?
A little bit, not a lot. I did do a couple of Hong Kong cinema events here. Did a Chinese film festival here, and I do a series here with some other guys called It Came from Schenectady, and occasionally we'll throw in Asian, Japanese or Korean action film or sci-fi or horror film.
So tell us a little bit about It Came from Schenectady. It's very eclectic, is it not?
It is. It's it's an ever-changing group of people. Peter Hughes and I are, I think, at two most consistent members. And the thing is, everybody in the group has different tastes, different interests. So, generally we're trying to do things that, that again are not what you're going to see at the mall. So, cult films from the 70s and 80s, but also things that are on the film festival circuit now that might not get picked up by an American distributor, but are really exciting and interesting films. So we'll bring those here.
And what age is your audience? Or
it's very wide. I mean, one of our events we just had this past Saturday is the all-you-can-eat cartoon and cereal party, something like that. I know it's all-you-can-eat cartoons, not all-you-can-eat cereal, but it's I think it's a Saturday morning cereal and all-you-can-eat cartoon party, and very young kids come to that. It's all all ages, a lot of fun, but we also do stuff that is more R-rated for older folks that have no morals. No.
That are old enough to have a variety
yes,
of material.
Have a variety of interests.
That's great. Well, maybe we could turn now to what you do in your actual job.
Sure.
So what does a house manager do?
There's so many things. I guess one of the most important things is that you meet with the technical manager or stage manager of each show that comes in, and you find out what their expectations are of us. If they allow late seating, if so, when are the intervals that they allow it? Are any of the actors going to come out into the audience? Do we need to be prepared for that? Do we need to clear aisles or open doors for them? So just basically learning about the show and how it might affect our ushers and other volunteers, and then letting them know what's being expected of them for each show. There's also just making sure the place is tidy before the audience is let in, and trying to keep the temperature reasonable, which can be a real challenge. Do
you secretly control that in your office?
No, I used to, but no longer. Now it's a phone call to facilities, and they are able to remotely adjust the temperature up or down.
So our heating system is now run on computer, basically?
Yep, yeah.
From away?
Yep, yeah.
What do we call that?
Yeah, remote. Yeah,
remote management of the...
Yeah, so those are the primary, and then of course if there's issues, if patrons are not getting along with one another, then have to step in and try to resolve, and but thankfully that doesn't happen a whole lot.
So when you are doing your state house managing job, are there a lot of, every once in a while, a problem that comes up that ties you up?
Yeah, so the biggest issue is if there's an altercation involving patrons, or a patron doesn't want to respect the late seating rules that we've been given, or more seriously, we have a number of times somebody will have some sort of medical emergency here at the theater, and we've got to try to safely get
so
them,
you would
get them
be
the help
kind
that
of
they
in
need.
charge of making sure that was handled?
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's a busy job.
Yeah.
Now another part of your job is the merchandise managing. So
right.
What does that mean?
Anything that gets sold in the building, Proctors gets a commission on. And so I have to negotiate with the shows, make sure they have the proper tax licenses for New York State. And depending on what they need from us, do they have the tax license or not? Because we can let them use our tax license, but we charge an additional fee for that. Find out if they have the paperwork. Do they need our help selling? Do they want us to provide some personnel to help? Do they need us to provide them with a starting bank? Just all that negotiation, and then based on that, we agree on a commission that they will pay us for being allowed to sell merchandise here.
Now, is there a big difference between the big Broadway shows and the smaller shows that come through?
The Broadway shows pretty much all know the routine. They're used to it. They expect to hear from me. Some of the other smaller shows, this is news to them. They didn't know that there was going to be a commission. They didn't know that they needed a tax license in New York in order to do this. So it can be a little more, of a guiding these people, especially those smaller shows. They don't really know. And then the rock and roll shows, they're used to just doing what they want when they want, and they're usually these tough guys, and it's always interesting dealing with them.
So give me the Paul Kazee tough guy act.
I like to do as much as I can through email. I find it's
peaceful.
Yes, I find it's peaceful. People, you don't have to get into those staring contests and this is what we say. So I try to do it through email whenever I can.
So that you end up with an email agreement.
Yeah,
basically.
and then it's all in writing too. Yeah.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
So you have a very now what you have one more part of your job which we have to talk about is lost and found.
Yes.
Impresario. I don't know what we could.
Yeah, the keeper of all things lost and found. It's just amazing what people will lose. But after every show, the cleaning crew goes through, and they just dump the stuff on my desk, and so I log it into a computer file, what we found, best description, and then I try to match that with the phone calls that I get. Sometimes if there's something with an ID in it, then I check to see if we have a record of that person as a buyer here and can contact them to let them know that we have something of theirs. Or if that doesn't work, I'll try just going online and Googling a person, and sometimes you can find an address or a phone number that way.
What percentage of this lost and found stuff refines its home?
I don't know percentage, but it would be a small percentage overall, because most of what gets lost, reading glasses, things that people aren't going to make a big deal about chasing down. It does surprise me occasionally when we get a nice camera or a phone and nobody ever calls and I can't find out who it belongs to, although I will go through the photos to see if there's anybody. I've read a couple of times, there's a staff member in here. They must know who that, who this camera belongs to.
But people do call very desperately. I mean, they leave their keys here.
Yeah, people leave stuff, keys
just amazing.
Keys almost always get returned because those people know when they've lost their keys. Wallets almost always get returned unless some other guest found it first and decided to keep it.
Oh dear. So you brought along a list of your duties, so just check it over and see if we've basically talked about.
I think those are the big things. I also I recruit the volunteers for all of the Proctors movies that we do. Cindy LaRoe actually trains all the volunteers, but movie volunteers they come from all groups. She's got her ushers, she's got her bartenders, gift shop people, but movie volunteers can come from any one of those groups. So they're a subgroup that want to work the movies. So anytime either myself or Bob Warlock adds a movie to the schedule, I send out an email, or I ask Cindy to send out an email to all the volunteers, and then I assign them as they would like to be assigned. Yeah, and then there's a lot of equipment stuff too. I maintain or assure the maintenance of our walkie-talkies and our defibrillator machines, the AEDs, I believe they call them. I don't know what that stands for. I should. And the little scanners credit card scanners and stuff, all the little equipment.
Do they have to be juiced up between use? You have to plug them in?
Yeah, in my office I have chargers and they sit on chargers and stuff, but you have to check them after, the morning after every show, just to make sure they're still operational, and IT comes down and helps if there's any issues. Just
in case people who are watching don't know, we now scan tickets. There's a barcode on it, and it goes right to our computers, and we know whether a ticket is used, and it goes right in the record. Yeah, it was a little touch and go at first, getting those things to work well, but we finally, I think, got a system that works reasonably fast and accurately. So I'm of the understanding that a lot of our recruitment of young people, talk about that.
Yeah, well, for the Broadway shows, we try to use our young cast members as much as possible in the scanner, because they're used to much more than folks of our age. They're used to playing with devices and playing computer games and stuff, and so it's not that these things are difficult, but for some people there's just a mental, it's like, oh, what am I doing? Where's these kids that are used to playing with stuff and figuring it all out? So it's really helpful to have a young group of people here who are not timid about new technology.
So that has also created a whole volunteer program in which they meet and talk about different things and do different projects for the theater. So it's a young group of volunteers, and they get to see the show for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. It's great to volunteer. Cindy LaRoe can talk more about the different volunteer groups, but and things are changing now. Some of the rules are starting to change in that area. I think it's a great. Our volunteers, we couldn't operate without them here. Absolutely not. There's many more of them than us, and there's some really dedicated ones that have taken over and essentially become managers of various
volunteer
groups.
managers,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
that's neat. Do you have to review contracts when a company comes in and look through it and see what obligations you might have under the contracts?
Yeah, I'll generally look at that to see if there's been some agreement regarding merch commissions and stuff ahead of time, because occasionally the folks upstairs will have already negotiated something. Usually they defer to tell the people just to talk to me, but occasionally they will do. So I'll look to make sure before I contact someone and say, hey, you owe us 20%. I want to make sure that they weren't already told that 15% was okay if this condition and that condition.
So either the contract or the email.
Yeah, yeah. So check.
Peace in the valley.
Yeah, check the contract for that. And the shows will typically, the Broadway shows will send us a sheet of paper outlining the various expectations they have. So sometimes it's not even necessary to actually meet with them, because you've got it all there and it's very clear. But it's always, I think, a little bit better if you meet with them in person and know who you're dealing with, and go over in case there's any questions about what's there in print.
Now you have probably one of the most unique offices at Proctors. So talk to us a little bit about what it was, what it is.
Yeah, well, I believe it was initially the box office for the theater when we only had the one theater. I guess it must have been the box office when I came in, because we didn't have the other side. It's odd that I don't. What I remember it being deeper though. I guess it went into the space which is now the atrium outside the GE. Yeah, so the box office was there, and at one point when they began the expansion, they cut it off into this really narrow closet, and I have one end of that closet now.
But from the point of view of the public, it's quite a beautiful thing.
Is it?
Yes. I mean, the outside
from the point
of
of view of sitting inside it, it's a pretty crummy little closet.
Well, but look at it this way. You're right in the middle of everything,
Yeah.
because for people who may not know, this is right in the arcade, across from the entrance to the main theater. So
yeah, it's good. I'm there. I typically have my door open so people come in, and I get a lot of questions about the theater, and a lot of people just want to know where the bathroom is or where the box office went to.
is this when there's a show or when there's not a show?
All the time, and it's also I'm the first. If there's sometimes you'll get kids making a ruckus out in the arcade. They'll just they're just.
And you
just
go out
kids.
there and stand like
I
this.
go out there and look at them, and usually they get afraid and they leave. But occasionally there'll be a kid that'll want to mix it up a little bit.
Is that your acting experience comes into play?
A little bit, yeah. I have to pretend to be the tough guy. You got to be careful though, because if you push somebody too far, then they want to challenge you. So you don't want to come off like don't do this again, or else I'm going to do that.
So acting and psychology,
yeah,
both.
they're going to test you.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Boy, I think we've got the major stuff that I'm doing here. I'm glad we touched on it came from Schenectady, because that's what I really enjoy, is bringing the offbeat films here.
I think that's an interesting thing about Proctors. How many employees have a side interest?
Yes. Yeah, it
and
makes it difficult sometimes, though, to find a date on the calendar. You go there and, oh, geez, Ethan's got his thing there, and so-and-so's got his thing over there. It makes it harder and harder for me to find a date for my stuff.
You know what the secret of that is? Get on the calendar early.
Earlier than everyone else, yes.
Well, Paul, thank you for being with us today, and we appreciate very much your addition to this part of our history, and I'd just like to thank our audience for watching us. We are on August 17th, 2015, and this is a project of Proctor's Historical Committee to basically keep a record of many things that have happened to Proctor's over the years so that we can use it in many ways. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you for having me.